It was a huge leap of faith for us, and I think that's what makes her a bigger part of this story than anything, right? Is she every decision that we made for us to be in this position, she not only okayed it, she was pretty much a catalyst of it.
Mm.
And so, because she saw I wasn't happy, going to work, sitting in the car, just looking at the steering wheel for an hour,
Wow.
it's not happy.
Yeah.
And so, teaching leadership full time as when making $16,000 a year
Mm.
made me happier than making 60 something working as a staff member.
All right, we're out. All right, let's get into it. Welcome.
Hey. So I received the Dr. Mayweather energy. Um, Still got chapters 4 and 5 to write. I was working on that this morning. So
Mm-hmm.
I am on my way. Right,
Oh
I am
yeah.
on my way.
Manifesting.
Oh
So I
yeah.
appreciate the love and
Of
energy. How
course.
y'all doing?
Hey, we are blessed in here. And you may hear some cheferific, beautiful stuff happening downstairs, but we appreciate you coming on. And I believe when we were doing our intro, you were saying how it's been a week. So some things have been popping off, and we were about to get into it, but then the episode was about to start. So I don't know if you want to get into a little bit of that right now.
Um,
It's like,
in all honesty, I think it's an opportunity to talk about how important you being able to be your authentic self is.
mm,
And so I think Davon and I, Breathe You, community for
mm,
under Eric Thomas. They've been talking about authenticity all week, and I'm a person who is very people pleaser,
mm,
and I struggle when I have to have hard conversations with people that I know I want to please.
yeah,
Right. And it's not just, not my wife or anything like that, but like I just want to make people feel happy and loved and like they are themselves, but also to my detriment. If it's in my community that
yeah,
I can't be authentic in, then it's also hurting me trying to please somebody else.
yeah.
Right. And so that's what I've been kind of rumbling and, working through is kind of how do I speak my own truth
Mm-hmm.
in my own space,
Mm,
right? Because that's where you're supposed to be able to do that.
yeah. And what did authenticity look like, or what didn't it look like growing up? Right? Because I feel like personally, I dealt with authenticity issues probably more so in middle school, high school, maybe a little bit of college as well. Now I'm a proud self-proclaimed black nerd. I'll be reading all
Yes.
type of books. I'll be diving into it. But I feel like in middle school, high school, that wasn't necessarily the cool or acceptable thing to do. So did you experience any of that battling with your authentic self growing up?
That's a great question. Actually, I don't think that was a thing until I became cool,
Mm,
right? So my story is I was a big guy most of my younger years, but actually all the way through high school. Wouldn't consider like a slim. I was thick. If anything, brolic or not brolic, but like big. You know what I mean?
mm,
Maybe even fat. Maybe you would call it that. Some people.
mm.
And of course, freshman year you get the freshman 15. I think I'm more getting like the freshman 30.
Oh yeah.
And so I was like,
Yeah.
I need to go on a health journey. Okay, I
Mm,
need to change my life. And so ended up losing over 100 pounds.
wow.
Wow.
And that's when I became cool, right? And so now girls like me. Now guys want to know why girls like me.
Mm,
Now I'm getting attention that I never gotten before. So I'm losing myself in that a little bit.
mm,
And But when I was fat, I just it was me, It was like I didn't have no worries trying to, impress anybody because nobody was ever looking for me to impress them. It was not ever looking for me to be that guy until it kind of happened, and then it's like, wow, um, there's some opportunities here that I've never had before. Just get lost in that,
Yeah.
especially with women.
Mhm.
And so that was easier when I was young. Now it's like, holy moly, people have expectations for what I should do, especially getting a PhD, having a being a father, being a husband, being a homeowner, having a sense of education, polishedness, right? Like a lot
Mhm.
of people expect for me to be like, I have it all together. When it's like, yo, ain't nobody taught me how to do this.
Mm.
Right.
you know.
So how did you find your way back? So you said, after you lost that 100 pounds, you had that kind of period of time where you were dealing with this new perception of what other people thought of you, and you trying to possibly meet that perception. But I would imagine there was a point where maybe you're looking in that mirror and you're like, okay,
Mm.
hold on, Dar, what's going on here?
Mhm.
How'd you find your way back to who you were, who you are?
I think I'm still finding it. Be totally honest. But I think it was one of those things where you have to recognize you're human. So for me, losing weight is not just about fitness; it's about addiction.
Mm,
And so I was ballooning up and down, up and down. I
yeah,
would lose and I would gain. I would lose, I would gain. And it was kind of that realization, like, dang, once you get big again, you're not that cool anymore. So then, what are you doing to validate yourself?
Mm.
And so, of course, in those time frames, I'm also validating myself with food and liquor.
mm,
Those things that again makes me bigger,
right,
right? And so I think it was trying to really figure out what's the balance. How do I then find a sense of self and also do the things I love because I still love eating. I love food.
that's a
Okay.
fact.
Oh.
um, I like to hang out. I like to have a drink or two, but I think it was also like, all right, how am I continuing to make sure that I'm putting the exercise in there or the wellness in there? Like you talk about that emotional stress that turns into physical embodiment of stress. So for me, I guess that looks like me trying to really tackle one issue when you got a whole life going on around you. Right. And those things just start piling up. The things that you normally did start piling up, or the things that you normally used to do, you start doing less of.
Mm,
And so I have to continuously kind of remind myself, like, yo, like this one problem should not consume my entire being.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got children, I got a wife, I got my own body that I need to
yeah,
take care of. And those things are important too.
100%. Let's talk about the queen and the kids, right? Can we hear that story? Can we hear how y'all met?
Oh man, the queen. So that's one thing how I say I remember Davon in our coaching calls. It was like, I love my queen.
Ah.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
In fact, man, I love it. Yo, be, being totally 100. She was a grad student on the college that I was working at,
Mm,
and I was mentoring these two young black men. Shout out to Chris and Christian, and they were just amazing. Two men who always saw me as a mentor, even when I probably shouldn't have been.
mm,
And they always invited me to their programs. They were RAs, resident advisors. I was a hall director, and so we were going in similar career paths. And I always said, like, I was busy, I had stuff to do. One time I'm like, all right, it's the end of the semester, I'm going to make sure I go to their program. Ended up being a sexual health workshop. Of course, I'm like, I ain't gonna miss that. All the wrong reasons, right?
uh-huh.
Of why I'm
Ouch.
going. Um, but in the reality is, it's all divinely intervened because she
Mm,
walked in and she was the facilitator.
mm,
And I had no idea, right? Like, I'm like, oh, a black woman is about to lead us, okay. And then she walks to this, front of the room, and she puts this little suitcase on the table, opens it up. It's all these pieces, and then she just put together this like vagina statue, and it
mhm,
was like that, like pow. I was like, oh. so she know what she doing too, right? And so I actually was like trying to get her mentor, which was also my mentor, to give me like the inside scoop because she had to leave early and she wouldn't give it to me. So I'm like, I'm trying to ask all the questions that you can ask without really saying, yo, I want to get her number, you know?
Is she single? What's her favorite meal? Talk
was
to
her
me.
man in the audience?
What school she in, how, you know what days, she might be around there, like what programs is she working with? How can I, if it is, when's the next one? Like all these,
I love it.
And I guess I didn't see her again for like 5 or 6 months.
Wow.
Until we were hosting a conference, internal conference, so all programs within the school. And I saw a session. I'm like, maybe she's in the session because that was the session for the program that she worked for. She was also leading that session, doing the presentation. I was like, oh, this gotta happen. Right? And so ends up, I'm a liaison for that program. So I go into the room, I see her presenting. She's doing her thing. I'm like, hey, like, I would love to connect. Let's do some lunch, see if we can talk about the program. We get to lunch, talk a little bit about the program, but I'm like, yo, I got a birthday bar crawl coming up like in 2 days. You want to come? And she shows up on time, right? With her friend, like, and like,
when you
so
say on time, so the party
On
started
time.
at what time? And this party started at what time?
like the party starts at 5 o'clock,
And she shows up when?
4:45.
Listen, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Like she is in there. So we sit next to each other, right? Like ain't no space in between us. And her friend is like, hey, so why you throw my girl to pump fake? And I'm like, pump fake? I invited her.
Right.
I'm the reason y'all here. She saw you at a program like 6 months ago and she sent you an email and you never responded.
Oh.
So I'm like, oh, really? You know? And she like, well, I mean, and then she pulls it up. She's like, I normally don't do this, but and I was like, what? I look at my email. I'm like, I don't see nothing. I'm like, well, hey, and yeah, she next thing you know, she had a drawer and she had a key and
there was kids,
right?
Yeah, meal plan, and we moved in together. And
Meal plan.
the kid was coming next. So I had no idea. Pretty
That's
soon after that, actually.
Yeah. So the lesson here, everybody, is check your emails.
Check
your emails.
You never
because
know.
the love of your life, that next opportunity could be sitting right there in your inbox, in your spam. Check your emails, y'all. All right.
Yep.
Oh man, that's great.
Thank you for tuning in to the True Health Forever podcast. We hope you learned something valuable that you can take and implement into your life. Now, we've all heard that sharing is caring, and this podcast is no exception. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, a family member, a coworker, a stranger walking down the street, anybody who you think can level up from this message. As always, we appreciate your support, and we'll talk to you next week. Be well.